This is Alice. She's 8 years old. She's happy and safe at home, playing with her friends and favourite toys, having her bedtime stories from Mum. Then a war starts in her country, a war she doesn't understand. It destroys the things she loves, her toys, her school, her home, her friends, her mum and dad. All the things that make her feel safe, gone. She is at daily risk of being shot at, abducted, tortured, raped, killed. For 20 years, War Child has proved that even in the worst wars, you can give a child the best possible future. With your support, War Child can protect her from the devastating effects of violence, keeping her safe, helping her cope with the traumas she's faced, getting her back to school, reuniting her with her family, giving her hope, giving her a childhood back. Together, we can protect the innocent victims of war.
And joining us now, Samantha Nutt. She is the founder of War Child Canada and the author of a new book called Damned Nations: Greed, Guns, Armies, and Aid.
Nowadays, many of us feel the desire to give to our families, to our friends, and to those in need. Giving is easy, but giving effectively takes more work. And last month, founder of War Child Canada, Samantha Nutt, delivered a compelling speech on philanthropy. She challenged many of the conventional views on charity. And Samantha Nutt joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
It's interesting because we all want to give back, especially at this time of the year, and yet you sort of say it isn't necessarily the way you should be. For example, your take-home message from that speech that resonated with so many people listening is?
Well, my take-home message was don't give to charity, give to change. And what I mean by that is that we have to choose the projects and the charitable organizations that we support very carefully. And one of the things that people often don't appreciate is that how you give is often as important as how much you give. So, for example, we do know that monthly contributions, regular contributions to an organization are much more effective. If you really want your dollars to get to people who need them, that allows organizations to properly plan. It allows them to have longer-term programs that actually address some of the big structural deficits like poverty and conflict that exist within communities.
What do you make of crisis giving, especially in light of Typhoon Haiyan, and everybody was just felt compelled to give, and you don't know if, should I give $50 to the Red Cross? Should I be shipping clothes over to the Philippines? What do I do?
It's never a good idea to send hard goods. Cash is always king. It's paramount. It allows organizations to much more effectively mobilize. Almost everything can be procured within the region, if not exactly locally. So for the Philippines, not everywhere was affected by the typhoon, and so it was possible for organizations that had cash to then access those resources locally. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot more effective, it's a lot faster. So even though we might feel that it's more transparent if we give tins of food, for example, it's a lot harder and a lot more expensive in that situation. So cash is always paramount. And when you see a crisis in the news, it's important to be very generous. And Canadians were extremely generous with the Philippines, as they were with the tsunami, as they were with Haiti, and that's absolutely wonderful. But again, it's about balancing those competing needs. So as much as we think about food and water and shelter and blankets, those things are extremely important. But also when you look at what's happening around the world, if you're looking at what's happening in Syria or in South Sudan or in Darfur or in the Central African Republic, those are some bigger, broader challenges, that it's important to give in those situations as well, not just to the crises in the news, but the neglected conflicts. And in those situations, it's much better to support things like education, economic development, the kinds of initiatives that actually help people get out of poverty and become self-reliant.
Samantha, what about volunteerism, where people actually give more than their money? They give their time, they go to other parts of the world and build a school. Do they get in the way, or do they help?
I'm always in favor of people going overseas and seeing as much as they possibly can. Africa in particular is a vast and beautiful and wondrous continent. If you want to go, go as a tourist, spend your dollars, your hard-earned dollars in local markets, promote those local economies. But there really isn't a need for this kind of busy work philanthropy. The best kind of development work invests in those local communities, those local partners, people from within those communities to actually do the work themselves. That's the most sustainable model. And just going over, again, you have to ask yourself, what was happening before I arrived? What's going to happen after I leave? And who's going to take over that work? And have I, perhaps by accident, taken a job that could have gone to somebody locally?
And here's an example of what you're saying. For example, people go over and help in an orphanage, and you make a bond with some of the children. And then after 2 or 3 weeks of being there, or up to, I'd say, months in some cases, suddenly these kids feel abandoned, right?
Well, there's actually been there are several studies that have found exactly that while we might go and we feel, oh my goodness, these kids are so loving and so appreciative, the reality is that actually is creating emotional bonds with this ever-revolving door of strangers. And over time, that can actually cause increasing trauma for the children, because they're forming these emotional bonds that are repeatedly broken, and they become, too emotionally indiscriminate, very needy, and they just don't feel as if they're getting the right kinds of supports. So again, it's a situation where we may feel good, but if you really want to make a difference in that situation, you're much better supporting the organizations that are working in those communities through local partners and making sure that change is sustainable.
Like buying a goat for the community, is that type thing?
Well, certainly, anything that allows families to then be able to generate income for themselves and care for themselves, it's really important. Whether a goat's the most effective way or a chicken, I'm actually in favor of programs that support education and economic development for particularly women and girls, but also for young men as well. We know that when you invest in these things, that actually over the long term reduces infant and maternal and child mortality, that it's the single most important determinant of those things. We also know that when you invest in economic development opportunities for young men, that reduces the likelihood of armed violence and criminality within those communities. So again, it's about being smart with your dollars and making sure they're going to have the biggest bang for their buck.
How do you know? Is there somewhere you can go online? Is there like a clearinghouse? How do you know that they're using the majority of your donation, should it be a financial donation, for what you hope it is and not for buying paper and pencils and paying the rent? How do you find those things out?
You have to do just a little bit of homework. Go onto the charity's website, see if they have an annual report posted, see if they have their financial statements posted and if the information is there. Have a read, find out what they do and how they do it, and if you support that philosophy, or just give them a call, especially this time of year. Organizations are really standing by to take people's calls to talk about why their organization is worthy of your hard-earned money.
Mm-hmm.
Lots to think about. Samantha Nutt from War Child Canada. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you.
انزل وقفي واللي وقفي Just